Well, hey, welcome back and welcome to this video on Scrum, getting a common language for Scrum. This is a super high level overview, so get ready to fly fast. Here we go. The Scrum process in general. This is what we're going to cover today in this video. It all starts with a customer proxy known as the product owner. This person is supposed to represent the needs, requirements, desires, whatever it is that the customer wants, even if they don't know that they want it. So this is the product owner. The product owner then takes all these ideas in their head and they create a backlog, which is just a listing of stories, little snippets that are reminders of what what this feature or function is that the customer would like. They put them in this backlog and they prioritize it by value, the value that the customer will get out of it. And that's obviously going to be a combination in business of the value that we as a business will get out of it, money, and the value that the customer will get out of it, whatever it is that they need, and the balance between those two things. So the optimal is high value to customer, high value to us, and the suboptimal, the lowest one, is low value to the customer and low value to us. One would be at the top of the backlog, the other would be at the bottom. If you want other ideas of how to prioritize backlogs, watch the video on prioritization models. So then there's the team. This would be a Scrum team. There's a common number for saying what size of Scrum team. It should be 7 plus or minus 2, so that's 5 to 9 people are in a Scrum team. Some people will call it a 2-pizza team. That comes out of Amazon. That concept is more actually leaning towards XP, but doesn't matter. Scrum's definition is 7 plus or minus 2, because 7 is kind of an optimal number for getting collaboration and cooperation amongst people and getting brainstorming going. Better than having 1 or 2 people. Also better than having a whole bunch of people. If you're wondering about why not a whole bunch of people, watch the video on team size. So then the Scrum team takes from the product backlog and looks at it and says, well, we think in our time box, in our sprint, that's what they call a time box, a sprint, we think we can get this much work done. And they pull certain numbers of cards from the top of the backlog, the most important things to the customer / product owner. They are not really supposed to shuffle down further in the stack just because they want to. They are supposed to pull from the top of the pack, unless there's a technical reason that story A has to come before story B, right? So it may be that there's a story that is higher priority to the customer / product owner, but it's not technically feasible to do until you implement some other story that's a little bit farther down in the stack. Then there's a negotiation between the product owner and the team to say, well, okay, does that change the priority of this card? If not, then we'll pull the lower one and this one, or we'll just pull the lower, whatever it is. To get the work done, they pull just enough work to get done this sprint. The important thing is that the team is pulling the work. It's not being given to them. It's not assigned to them. They are not told to work on it. They are voluntarily pulling in as much work as they think they can get done in that sprint time. Common sprint time is most common today is about 2 weeks. In the original Scrum documentation, the sprint length was said to be 30 days. That really isn't the case anymore, but I'm not sure if it's in the Scrum documentation or not. Go look it up. And who knows, by the time you're watching this, they may have new Scrum documentation. So they pull in enough work to get done in that time period with the skills and people that they have on the team. All right, so there they are. They're pulling the work in the sprint backlog. So you have a product backlog and a sprint backlog. Sprint backlog is what they do in the sprint. Product backlog is everything else. Then they have I'm going to use a 2-week for sake of argument here, a 2-week sprint, and they have daily scrums. So this is the rhythm that a Scrum team works on, is their sprint cycle and the daily Scrum cycle. Scrum comes from rugby. A Scrum is where the ball is on the field. There's a group of people mashing about around it, trying to move it down the field one direction or another. That mash of people is called a Scrum. And that's why they use that term, because it is not supposed to be something that is pretty and planned effectively, blah 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 blah. It's a mashup of people working fast, and that's what Scrum works. How Scrum works. So they grab those stories and they work on them. They decompose them into whatever sub elements that they decide make sense for them. And then during that sprint, they just work on them until they create completed functionality that is able to be delivered to the customer. A product increment, an increment of value to the customer. This is not an incremental, not increment. This is not a layer upon layer approach, or when we get 12 of these things, then it's worthwhile. In the perfect world of Scrum, every sprint produces value to the customer. And so the customer is able to actually use whatever it is that comes out of the team. In the daily Scrum, the team coordinates and talks with each other. Typically, they start off, at least when the teams are first forming, asking 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? What was accomplished? What are you going to work on today? Where will you be so that we can coordinate? And do you have any impediments, any blockers, anything that needs to be removed so that you can get your work done? And that's it, those 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And what are you doing? What are your roadblocks? I have a separate video on the daily Scrum and the dysfunctions that sometimes happen in that. And please watch that. It's important. Really, actually, critically important. People mess up with this daily Scrum is often, and then it loses its value. So they've worked on this hard. They've gotten it to a product increment. Yay, it's usable. And what do? They go before their customers and they demo the work, the finished product. The customers get to see and have input on, what is this? How did it work? Is it what we wanted it to be? Oh, that's really cool, but I'd like it in blue, or add a button over here, or the workflow doesn't make sense. This is to the customer that they're demoing this, right? So the customer gets to provide feedback. At the demo, you also want to be celebrating the work, right? Hey, gee whiz, you guys got this work done. That is so cool, so exciting. So that's what you do there. The team then goes in after the demo and has a retrospective, which is taking a little bit of time to talk about how we worked together. It's not a time to talk about how the stories were, how the work, like whether the customer liked it or didn't like it, or that's not talking about that. It's talking about our process. So Michael Gerber, in his book E-Myth, talks about working in your business and working on your business. For those of you with a business mindset, this is working on your business, right? When you're developing the product increment, you're working in the business. This is working on the business. And in that retrospective, you will talk about how it went. You will talk about any past things that you were trying out. You will come up with a new experiment, usually, that you will try out in the next sprint. I like to talk about it in terms of experiments because it makes it seem less permanent. Like we're going to try this experiment as opposed to we're going to make this change, right? We're going to try this experiment and see if it works to improve the way we work together. Okay, we'll try that. And then at the next retrospective, you say, how did that experiment go? And are we going to codify it, like use it, or do we want to try another sprint's worth of experimentation, or do we want to drop it entirely? So that's a retrospective. What did we do? How did we doing it? Watch the video on retrospectives. There will be a couple of them on that because retrospectives are critically important. Critically important. One of the if you never do anything else, do this kinds of things, right? Unfortunately, retrospectives are something that people sometimes drop because, it seems like a waste of time. I believe it is the most important thing. Drop Scrum before you drop your retrospectives, okay? All right, enough soapboxing. So then the the product owner from a customer demo gets some new ideas. Those become stories that get put into the product backlog and prioritized with everything else that's in there. So it's possible that one of the feedback items from the customers will prioritize to the very top of the pile, and they'll be working on that same piece of functionality again in the next sprint, just iterating on it, right? Creating a new function or new version of it. It's also possible that those things will all prioritize to the bottom of the pile and they won't ever be seen. So it's important to note that they get prioritized in with the rest of the backlog. And then they do it all again. Another sprint, another product, another demo, and away it goes. I have no idea why that group of people is up in the corner there. They appeared out of nowhere. Maybe you're getting more customers because they're so delighted with the product. All right, so that is it. That is Scrum in a nutshell. Just really fast and dirty, or clean. Fast and clean. Here it is. If you have any questions, give me an email. But that's it. There's other videos on Scrum. Watch those too. This is the quick and dirty version. Thanks. Bye-bye.